Hello everyone, welcome, or in some cases, welcome back. This is another in the 10-minute tip series of recorded programs for credit and collection professionals. This one is titled How to Negotiate with Customers. My name is Michael Dennis. I'll be the presenter today. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Negotiation, at least the way we're going to use it today, involves settling disputes or differences between creditors and customers while avoiding arguments and disputes and gridlock. It's been my experience that many people are very uncomfortable with the idea of negotiating anything with anyone. And that's going to be a problem if you work in the credit and collections department. We're really going to have to get used to the idea that our job involves negotiations with delinquent customers. Our goal today is to find ways to negotiate that result in the best possible outcome for literally everyone, for us, for our customers, and for our company. The good news is that this short presentation offers tools and tips and ideas and techniques that you can implement immediately to make you better and more effective at negotiations with customers and, I would add, with others. Let's talk about the basic requirements for effective negotiations. So to be effective, you have to, at a minimum, communicate clearly and listen carefully. You have to state whatever position you've decided to take and your goals as effectively as possible. It's important to find ways to avoid what I refer to as an adversarial interaction. That involves looking for an outcome that represents a win for you and a win for the customer, a win-win outcome. To be effective as a negotiator, you have to respond effectively to questions and comments, and I would add excuses, because as it relates specifically to business debt collection, there are maybe a dozen common excuses that customers use over and over and over again, and if we have a way of appropriately responding to those excuses, sort of a canned response every time we hear that type of an excuse, we'll be that much better off in negotiations that we're having on an ongoing basis with past due customers. Another basic requirement for success in business-to-business negotiations with customers is to keep your commitments as well as your promises. Sometimes I use the word threats and people object to that, so I'll simply use the word promises. Additional requirements for effective negotiations at a minimum include the ability to control your emotions during the negotiation. In addition, you have to be able to differentiate between good and bad. You need to be able to determine if the customer's proposal is acceptable, and in addition, that it is likely to be the best that they're going to be able to offer or propose to resolve the problem. Another basic requirement is that you know the limits of your authority. For example, if you're negotiating an extended payment plan and the customer is pressing you for an additional 90 days to pay, well, perhaps your authority limit is that you can only approve an additional 30 days, and knowing that will enable you not to step beyond the limits of your authority, which are there for a valid reason. In negotiations, remember this: listen more than you speak. In addition, there's a basic rule for negotiation, and it is this one: try not to be the party that makes the first concession. In a very real sense, the idea that you make the first concession is an idea that you are, in effect, negotiating against yourself. So be very reluctant to make the first concession in a negotiation with a delinquent customer. I'm using the PG version of this title, Proper Preparation Prevents Poor Performance. Before each phone call, you should do a certain amount of preparation. At a minimum, before you pick up the phone and talk to the customer, you should know all of the following: how much money is owed specifically, and if it's past due, how far past due is it? How long has the person, the entity that you're going to be contacting, been a customer of your company? If you rate or rank customers, is this customer considered to be a low, medium, or high risk? Is this company a particularly important customer to your company for some reason? Perhaps it's the length of time they've been a customer. Perhaps it's a friend of the boss account. Perhaps it's the volume of sales they do on a regular basis. Perhaps there's other factors that make them key and important to your organization. And if so, you need to know that before you negotiate anything with them. How much do they usually purchase from your company each year? And how do they normally pay your invoices? If you're talking to them trying to negotiate for payment of a past due balance, well, knowing how they normally pay you and other creditors is one of the prerequisite pieces of information you should have. Say no to bad deals. Sometimes customers start their negotiation by offering what I would simply describe generically as an unacceptable offer in response to a routine request for the status of payment of a past due balance. When they do, please try not to overthink it. This is just an opening salvo. They're throwing it across the table to see if you pick it up. When they do, instead of reacting negatively, just start the negotiation process. If the customer's initial offer is unacceptable, simply say, or something along these lines. Please don't always think that you need to use exactly the words that I'm using. But the thing I might say is something like this: sorry, that proposal is not acceptable. And I always follow up with a statement like this: who do I need to speak to today about getting a better payment commitment? As with anything that we discuss in these 10-minute tips programs, nothing works all the time. I acknowledge that. That's just reality. But this little strategy of sorry but no, let me talk to somebody else please, works so often that I can say that it works at least half the time. That simple statement results in the initial offer being withdrawn and a more reasonable and realistic offer being presented, or alternatively, it opens up the door to a negotiation, which is exactly what you want when you say no to bad deals offhand and move on to begin the negotiation process. Negotiation tips. In a negotiation, you don't need to make a counter offer immediately. If a customer says, I'll pay you in 90 days, you don't have to make a counteroffer immediately. And that would be, in my mind, an opportunity for you to start gathering information about why the customer is making this unusual, I was going to say outrageous, but I'll just go unusual offer to pay you 90 days from the due date. When you negotiate and there is an agreement reached, always confirm verbally that agreement during that interaction, as well as confirm the agreement in writing immediately or as quickly as practical after the end of the discussion or the face-to-face meeting. If you're on a collection call with a delinquent customer, obviously your goal is to get immediate payment of the past due balance, but if that doesn't happen, know the least amount that you're willing to accept. In every negotiation with every customer, it's important to set the stage. And one aspect of setting the stage is making sure there's parity in the context of power between the two parties. So please approach negotiations with customers as equals, as business partners, not as someone coming hoping that the customer will be kind enough to send the money that they already owe. If a customer is high risk, rather than reducing the credit limit, consider a negotiation in which you are asking the customer to help you. For example, by asking what additional collateral the customer might be able to offer that would enable you to continue to extend credit in the amount that you have extended, or potentially even to increase the amount of credit that you're offering to them in the context of their credit limit. Negotiation tips continued. Please don't underestimate the power of silence in negotiations. When I'm doing this presentation in person, what I usually do here is pause for 15 seconds and watch the audience squirm, because silence is uncomfortable. Don't unnecessarily issue ultimatums in negotiations with customers. Always be well prepared for any discussion or any negotiation you're about to enter into. If a customer tells you that something is non-negotiable, don't believe that. Don't assume that that is a true statement. If a customer says, we are not going to be able to pay you for 60 days and that's non-negotiable, ignore that statement as simply an assertion, a position that they've taken that they will now be willing and able to negotiate away from. In any negotiation, be sure to ask open-ended questions. For example, if a customer says to me, we're having cash flow problems, my response is going to be, I'm not sure I know exactly what that means. Can you explain what cash flow problems means in this context? In every negotiation, take your time. Take as much time as necessary to get to the outcome that is preferable to you and is ideally a win-win outcome for all the interested parties. And again, don't be rushed. Don't have a sense of urgency, because having that sense of urgency can be picked up by the other party, and that makes it easier for them to negotiate more effectively against you, recognizing your deadline or timeline, if you will. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope that you found this presentation to be interesting and helpful. If you're interested in listening to the entire 30-minute on-demand program, please contact my sponsor, the Wisconsin Credit Association. If you like these recorded programs, please check out the library of on-demand programs available at Wisconsin Credit Association. And with that, thank you. Have a great day. Bye.